Hi everyone, this is Kareem, the voice of Simon Fairchild from the Magnus Archives. And today I want to talk to you about Boost Mobile. Some things quietly drain you, like an expensive phone bill trapping your money month after month. Here's a quick money tip. Stop paying a carrier tax. When you bring your own phone and switch to Boost Mobile's $25 unlimited forever plan, you can unlock up to $600 in savings. That's money that belongs in your life, not trapped in a phone bill. Reclaim those savings for something you're actually into. An EMF meter, a thermal camera, or whatever strange corner of the universe you're currently exploring. Visit boostmobile.com to unlock your savings and take back control. After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers pay $25 per month as long as they remain active on the Boost Mobile Unlimited plan. Boost Mobile January 2026 survey comparing average annual payments of AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile customers to 12 months on the Boost Mobile Unlimited plan. For full offer details, visit boostmobile.com.
Hi, it's Sarah. I'm the founder of Olive and June, and can I tell you the one thing that always makes my day better? A fresh manicure. But who has the time or the money to go to the salon every week? That's why we created the Olive and June Gel Mani System. It gives you that same mani that you get at a salon for so much less. It comes with everything you need, a pro-level lamp, salon-grade tools, our damage-free gel polish that lasts up to 21 days. All you do is prep, paint, cure, and you're good to go. And the best part, it's super easy and so affordable. Each mani breaks down to $2. So let's skip that $80 salon appointment and get the salon quality look at home for so much less and on your schedule. Head to oliveandjune.com/DIYGel20 and use code DIYGel20 for 20% off your first gel mani system. That's oliveandjune.com/DIYGel20. Code DIYGel20 for 20% off your first gel mani system.
This is not a drill. Wayfair Spring Cyber Week is here. Right now, get up to 80% off everything home at Wayfair. Plus amazing flash deals. Now is the time to score Cyber Week size deals on all your springtime essentials, like outdoor furniture, storage and organization, and patio picks. Plus, get fast and free shipping on everything right to your door. Shop Wayfair's Spring Cyber Week now through March 23rd and save up to 80% off everything home.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hi, it's Sarah. I'm the founder of Olive and June, and can I tell you the one thing that always makes my day better? A fresh manicure. But who has the time or the money to go to the salon every week? That's why we created the Olive and June Gel Mani System. It gives you that same mani that you get at a salon for so much less. It comes with everything you need, a pro-level lamp, salon-grade tools, our damage-free gel polish that lasts up to 21 days. All you do is prep, paint, cure, and you're good to go. And the best part, it's super easy and so affordable. Each mani breaks down to $2. So let's skip that $80 salon appointment and get the salon quality look at home for so much less and on your schedule. Head to oliveandjune.com/DIYGel20 and use code DIYGel20 for 20% off your first gel mani system. That's oliveandjune.com/DIYGel20. Code DIYGel20 for 20% off your first gel mani system.
You know what's wild? Most people are still overpaying for car insurance just because it's a pain to switch. That's why there's Jerry. Jerry's the only app that compares rates from over 50 insurers in minutes and helps you switch fast with no spam calls or hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Before you renew your car insurance policy, do yourself a favor. Download the Jerry app or head to jerry.ai/ACAST.
Hello, I'm Sarah, and welcome to the Whispering Woods After Dark. I have a vampire story to share today. It's not quite as long, and I'm sorry about that, but it is really interesting, and it's real. So history says. I'll get straight into it. Are you ready for the story? Isilova in 1725 was a small farming village near the Danube River. recently brought under Austrian rule after centuries under the Ottoman Turks. Life had a precarious normalcy until an otherwise unremarkable local peasant, Peter Plogojowitz, also known by the Serbian name Petar Blag, died at around age 62. He was buried with the usual rites, and for a little while, everything seemed routine. About 10 weeks after Peter's funeral, all hell broke loose. In the span of only 8 days, 9 of Peter's fellow villagers died in rapid succession, each after a sudden brief illness of roughly 24 hours. This alone was terrifying. But it's what those dying villagers claimed that pushed the community into panic. On their deathbeds, several victims gasped out that Peter, the man who'd been dead and buried for over 2 months, had come to them in the night and attacked them. They said the dead man laid on them and throttled them as they slept, leaving them fatally drained and gasping for their final breaths. To the 18th century peasants of Gizilova, these claims weren't dismissed as delirium. They were taken as literal truth. The word vampire was already part of local folklore. Such revenants were notorious in the Kingdom of Serbia in those times, as one contemporary Austrian report put it. Frightening tales of the dead rising to prey on the living weren't abstract to these villagers. They were part of the oral tradition. An elder might even recall similar horrors in Turkish times under Ottoman rule, when an entire village was said to have been destroyed by an evil spirit of this sort. So when neighbours heard the dying accuse Peter's ghost of assault, the community's collective dread caught fire. It wasn't just hearsay from the victims either. Peter's widow reportedly fled the village in terror after she had a nocturnal visit. She swore that her dead husband came to her, demanding his opansy, his shoes. Facing the image of your deceased spouse at your door, asking for his shoes, is the kind of nightmare fuel that would send anyone running. In her case, she packed up and left town for her safety. And then there was Peter's son. While the official records don't dwell on this, later retellings whispered an even darker twist. Peter's son allegedly encountered his dead father and refused the revenant's demands for food, only to be brutally attacked and killed by a dear old undead dad. In these accounts, Peter quite literally bit his son to death. By now, the once quiet village of Kisilova was in a full-blown vampire panic. Peter's restless corpse was stalking the night. Neighbours huddled together at dusk, too frightened to sleep alone. Families lightly hung garlic or clutched talismans, while every unexplained creak in the dark sent their hearts pounding. In a community of just a few dozen souls, 9 sudden deaths was practically an apocalypse. The villagers collectively reached one fearful conclusion. Peter must be a vampire, come back from the grave, to take revenge or quench an unholy thirst. At this point, the villagers decided they had one desperate option: exhume Peter's body and see if he truly was a vampire. According to local belief, a revenant's corpse would show telltale signs: fresh blood, pliable flesh, new growth of hair or nails, and lack of normal decay. If those marks were found, the proper, if gruesome, remedy was to stake the corpse and destroy the monster. But here was a snag. Kiselova was under Austrian imperial administration in 1725, and digging up a grave wasn't exactly something you did without permission. An Austrian Kammerprovisor, essentially a local administrator or steward of the imperial government, named Ernst Formbald, was stationed in the area. The panicked villagers marched to Ernst and the local priest, referred to in the documents as the Pope, meaning the Orthodox parish priest, and insisted they both come oversee the exhumation of Peter's grave. They wanted official sanction, or at least official witness, to what they were about to do. Ernst was in a tight spot. On one hand, he was an enlightened-minded imperial officer. He wasn't eager to indulge superstitious, grave violations. He protested that they should first send word to the higher Austrian authorities in Belgrade and get formal approval before taking any drastic action. They outright refused to wait. In their view, by the time a message went to Belgrade and back, the vampire could wipe out the whole village. They even cited precedent. Something like this had happened before under Ottoman rule, and the entire community had allegedly been decimated because people delayed, waiting for bureaucratic rubber stamping while a vampire picked them off one by one. No. In a blunt ultimatum, you've got to admire their backbone, the villagers told him that if he didn't authorize the exhumation immediately, they would abandon Kiselova entirely, leave their homes, their fields, everything, and flee to save their lives. Ernst suddenly faced the prospect of a ghost town on his watch, or worse, a riot. As he later wrote, "I could do what I wanted, but if I didn't accord them the viewing, they would have to leave house and home," believing the entire village might be destroyed by the evil if they delayed. Realizing he had no good options, Ernst reluctantly caved. He agreed to go with them, along with the priest, to exhume Peter's body, without waiting for higher approval. His logic was probably along the lines of better to ask forgiveness than permission, given the mob of terrified peasants at his door. So off they went to the graveyard, in the dead of night or early dawn. A group of villagers carrying lanterns and torches huddled together as they made their way to the small cemetery outside the village. The priest is murmuring prayers, Ernst perhaps sweating nervously under his wig. The grave in question is freshly dug up, dirt piled to the side, coffin pried open. All of this lit by a flickering yellow light under a wide Balkan sky. Everyone is holding their breath, bracing for what they might see in that coffin. They all knew the signs they hoped and feared to find, but none could be fully prepared for the reality in that grave. Ernst and the priest stood by as the villagers opened Peter's coffin, about 10 weeks after burial. What they found made even the Austrian official's blood run cold. By Ernst's own written account, the body appeared shockingly intact, far from a withered, skeletonized corpse. Peter looked well preserved. There was no smell of decay whatsoever, which was the first bad sign. Normally a 2+ month old cadaver would reek. Apart from the tip of the nose starting to rot away, the body was completely fresh, he noted with astonishment. To the superstitious onlookers, that alone screamed vampire. It got worse. Peter's hair and beard had grown visibly longer in death, as had his fingernails, so much so that the old nails had sloughed off and new nails were visible. Even his skin looked fresh. The old skin had peeled away, and a new healthy layer seemed to have emerged beneath it. In life, he couldn't have looked much more robust than he did right now, right then, in death. The villagers recoiled. Others leaned in with morbid curiosity. And then they saw the clincher, fresh blood around his mouth, red, wet blood on the lips and in the mouth of a man dead and buried for weeks. As Ernst put it, by common interpretation, this was the blood he had sucked from the people killed by him. It's hard to overstate how horrifying that sight would have been. Even the level-headed Ernst wrote that it was not without wonder that he beheld this corpse, matching all the local criteria for a vampire. The villagers who half expected it now fully freaked out, their worst fears seemingly confirmed before their eyes. Modern science can explain some of these observations. A buried body in certain conditions might decompose slowly, and skin recession can make hair and nails appear longer. Sometimes fluid purges from a corpse's lungs or stomach can put blood-tinged froth out of the mouth, mimicking the gruesome feeding evidence. But in 1725, none of this was understood. Ernst and the priest watched, lightly crossing themselves in awe, as the villagers grew more outraged than distressed, their fear turning into righteous anger. There was the monster that had been hunting them, lying in its coffin with bloody lips. There was only one thing to do now. They hurriedly sharpened a wooden stake on the spot. In some accounts, they made it from a hawthorn branch, or whatever wood was at hand, a classic vampire slaying tool. Then, in a frenzy, the mob proceeded to do what their folklore prescribed. They drove the stake straight through Peter's heart. What happens next was the stuff of nightmares. The moment the stake pierced the corpse, a great amount of completely fresh blood flowed from the ears and mouth of Peter's body. Some sources even note that the corpse let out a groan or a cry as it was impaled, an unearthly sound in the dark graveyard. The gore was apparently extreme, blood everywhere, as if the dead man had just fed. One observer reported additional wild signs that were so disturbing, the writer chose to pass them by out of high respect. Finally, they resolved to finish the job. According to Ernst, they hauled out the corpse and burned it to ashes outside of the village. Fire is the ultimate purifier in vampire lore. The remains of Peter were thus utterly destroyed, his ashes presumably reinterred or scattered. Some sources say the ashen corpse was returned to the grave and covered with an unmarked stone. The nightmare was over. The people of Kislova had taken drastic, grisly action. But if you ask them, it was absolutely necessary to save their own lives. And here's where this grim village tale becomes history. It didn't stay a local rumour. Imperial Provisor Formbold wrote a detailed report of everything he saw and did that night. Remember, he was a reluctant participant. In his formal account addressed to his superiors, Ernst essentially said, "Yup, this crazy thing happened. They dug up a so-called vampire. I saw it with my own eyes. And they staked and burned him. If that was wrong, please don't punish me." The crowd was out of their minds with fear. He concluded his report with a plea that if any mistake was made, blame should not fall on him but on the rabble, who were beside themselves with terror. The fascinating thing is that the Austrian authorities apparently let it slide. No one got punished for desecrating a grave or performing a heathen ritual. The higher-ups lightly shrugged it off as a superstitious backwoods incident and figured there was no point in making a fuss. Ernst's report didn't languish in a vault, though. It quickly found its way into the news of the day. On July 21st, 1725, the story was published in the Wienerisches Diarium, a Viennese newspaper which still exists today. The article, titled rather dryly, "Copy of a Writing from the Gradiska district in Hungary." Hungary because Habsburg officials at first geographically misidentified where Kislova was, gave the public a sensational blow-by-blow of a vampire execution. It caused a stir, to put it mildly. Remember, this is early 18th century Europe. The age of enlightenment is dawning. Rationality is on the rise. And yet here comes a tale out of imperial lands that sounds like a campfire horror story. The Plogojowitz case was among the first well-documented vampire accounts available to a wide European audience, and people ate it up. Within a few years, reports of similar cases started bubbling up, feeding what became known as the vampire craze of the 18th century. The most famous follow-up happened in 1731 to 32, not far away in another Serbian village, the case of Arnold Paul, and I will cover that on another episode. The Plogojowitz case was frequently cited in debates. Dom Augustin Calmet, a French scholar and Benedictine monk, included it in his 1746 treatise on apparitions and vampires, treating it with sober analysis as a true account in need of explanation. The Austrian authorities were not ignorant of local vampire law. In fact, before Peter's case even happened, there were scholarly writings about it. In 1704, a Habsburg official named Karl Ferdinand von Schurz published Magia Posthuma, a treatise that acknowledged the existence of vampires or revenants and discussed what to do about them. This indicates that throughout the late 1600s and early 1700s, stories of restless dead attacking the living were swirling around Eastern Europe. The Giogrando case of 1672 in Istria is often cited as the first real vampire in historical record. By 1725, the phenomenon was apparently common enough that the imperial court at Vienna wasn't completely blindsided by a vampire claim, though they certainly didn't advertise believing in such things. In frontier villages like Kislova, however, the belief in vampires was deadly serious. The Atlas Obscura entry on Kislejevo Cemetery succinctly notes that after Peter's burial, the rash of deaths fueled a rumour that Blagojevic had risen from the dead as a vampire. leading the frightening populace to exhume and stake the corpse. This was the standard village response in those parts. It's telling that German-speaking settlers in the region were reportedly not affected by the vampire scares, whereas Orthodox Serbian villagers were the ones claiming to see and suffer vampires. In a 1725 case, he notably offered no medical explanation in his report. He just described the events, perhaps because he was genuinely stumped by what he saw, or because he feared ridicule if he tried to hypothesize. His superiors archived the report without note, as if they preferred to file it away and not dwell on this embarrassment to enlightened administration. Yet ironically, by documenting it, they helped spread the vampire's legend far and wide. The Serbian word vampire entered the German language and then other languages through these very reports. One 1756 Austrian glossary had to explain what Blutsauger, bloodsucker, meant in the context of these bizarre stories. European elites were publicly scoffing at the notion of vampires, but privately they were intrigued. There are anecdotes that even King George II of Britain was sufficiently convinced by the evidence that he did not dismiss vampires outright. Perhaps it was a combination of real illness and cultural practice. In some Slavic folklore, if a person was suspected of being unclean at death, for instance, if they had died without last rites or were an evil person, or ironically, a victim of a vampire, that person could return as a vampire. It was believed that anyone killed by a vampire was fated to become one. In folklore terms, maybe one of Peter's victims was the initial vampire, and he was just the first to die and then got blamed. The villagers might have genuinely believed they had to act, or else every one of those 9 recently deceased would rise as well. Sometimes vampire panics led to multiple graves being opened. So what we see in Kislova fits a cultural pattern, a cycle of vampire panic that could spread if unchecked. Their decisive action against Peter may have been as much to prevent further vampires as to stop him alone.
Hi, it's Sarah. I'm the founder of Olive & June, and can I tell you the one thing that always makes my day better? A fresh manicure. But who has the time or the money to go to the salon every week? That's why we created the Olive & June Gel Mani System. It gives you that same mani that you get at a salon for so much less. It comes with everything you need, a pro-level lamp, salon-grade tools, our damage-free gel polish that lasts up to 21 days. All you do is prep, paint, cure, and you're good to go. And the best part, it's super easy and so affordable. Each mani breaks down to $2. So let's skip that $80 salon appointment and get the salon quality look at home for so much less and on your schedule. Head to oliveandjune.com/DIYGel20 and use code DIYGel20 for 20% off your first gel mani system. That's oliveandjune.com/DIYGel20. Code DIYGel20 for 20% off your first gel mani system.
Hi, this is Matt from P1 with Matt and Tommy, and this episode is sponsored by eBay. The cars you'll find on eBay are just different. They come with a story that you can't wait to share. Like this 1973 Dodge Charger on eBay that has been tucked away in an Arizona barn for over 40 years, only 55,000 miles, and somehow in great running order. It even has a rare sunroof. Suddenly, a car that was hidden for decades is being delivered in just a few clicks with eBay's secure purchase. All the paperwork handled. There are thousands of cars on eBay, from unique finds like the Pontiac Grand Prix SJ to daily drivers, and now with a new way to buy them. eBay. Things people love.
What a story. What interests me is, because obviously we know a lot more about science, about what happens medically to a body once it's expired. But it doesn't account for the villagers saying that he had come to them, that Peter had come to them and attacked them from the grave. That's the bit for me. It really is. Also, you do think, well, if there are vampires, why don't we have these stories now? I think they're better at hiding themselves. When I think of New Orleans, I think of vampires, obviously, from the books. Interview with a Vampire. I love those books. It's great. I love a bit of vampire lore. I haven't done any for ages, so I think what I'll do next week is do the other story that I mentioned, because that's a good one as well. Well, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you again on Tuesday. Take care, everyone.
Youth mental health is a complex challenge that requires comprehensive solutions. We must strengthen after-school programs. We must make digital literacy tools available in our schools. We must work with mental health professionals to support children. And we must empower mentors, educators, and parents to keep kids happy. Learn more about our commitment to finding lasting solutions at empowerourfuturecoalition.com/solutions. Paid for by the Coalition to Empower Our Future.
Hey y'all, it's Kelly Clarkson with Wayfair, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. Picture this. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app when you spot it. A brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's room of choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hey, this is Adam Grant, host of Ted's podcast, Rethinking with Adam Grant. Have you heard of Bill? It's the intelligent finance platform that uses AI to help you avoid costly errors and optimize cash flow. In fact, Bill reports that over 90 of the top 100 U.S. accounting firms trust them to manage, move, and maximize money, proven by over $1 trillion in secure transactions. Eliminate the friction and start scaling with the proven choice. Visit Bill.com/proven to talk with an expert about automating your business finances and get a $250 gift card as a thank you. That's Bill.com/proven. Terms and conditions apply. See offer page for details.
The stories told on the Whispering Woods are inspired by historical records, witness reports, and local folklore. While every effort is made to research and represent events accurately, some details, names, and locations may differ from official accounts or have been changed out of respect for those involved. These episodes are created for storytelling and entertainment purposes and should not be considered definitive fact or investigative journalism.